So, Jack, you're known for your athletic ability, your size, what you did for basketball, also football. And I think that's a good place to start. So, how did sports help you evolve, as a child, as a teenager, and then into an adult?
Yeah, so sports have really been a part of my life since I was as young as I can remember. My parents got me involved. I had two older brothers, so they were always playing sports and dragging me along with them. I was also the bigger kid, right? So I was always playing with the older kids, which I think in the long run helped me a lot, just competition wise. But the easy answer is the obvious stuff in youth sports. You learn teamwork, you learn playing in a structured environment, and taking coaching, things like that. The big one for me is really dealing with failure, though. We don't really have, as a culture, we kind of protect our children from that a lot, where we want things to be easy. We don't want our kids to be unhappy, which is natural, right? You want to protect your kids as a parent, but when you get in the real world, you are going to fail. There's going to be some hard times. There's going to be some losses, and if it's the first time you experience that, you're in for some trouble. It's not going to be pretty those first couple losses for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So you played football and basketball growing up, is that correct?
Yep.
Yeah. So, a lot of parents we talk to now, they have their children isolated on one sport and they do it year round. We've heard benefits to that and we've heard negatives to that. In your opinion now, for athletes growing up, do you think it's more beneficial to be a multi-sport athlete, or do you think it's more beneficial to focus on one specific sport, year round?
It's funny that you say that. I worked after my football career. I worked as a strength coach for a little bit, and also did some sports performance coaching for specific athletes and things like that. And we would get really young kids in there that their parents were really pushing them in one sport. They're a year-round lacrosse player or something like that. And a lot of these kids were just very unhappy with it, to be honest. They were kind of burnt out. They start to think of the sport as more of a chore than as, enjoyment or their hobby. And then with the specialization, you might get good at it, but for the college sports, recruiters are actually looking for multi-sport athletes.
Ooh,
They
that's
want
good.
you to be able to be multi-dimensional. Especially in football, they'll teach you how to play football once you get there. They don't expect you to have good technique or things like that. They'd rather pick the best athletes out of the group than someone that is just grinding football 24/7.
Yeah, and you hear about that a lot now. I feel like if say you're watching a game and they're going to mention these athletes who are multi-sport athletes. I remember watching Jimmy Graham and then being like, this dude played basketball his whole life, and they put him on a field like 2 years ago, and here he is dominating the red zone. Or Mahomes with his arm angles, and Russ with, what I mean, like all those different things. They mention it all the time now, so it seems pretty prominent, and it kind of pairs up with what you're saying here.
For sure. I play with guys. My roommate who played in the NFL never played football before his senior year of high school. And he was a track kid. He was a thrower, big dude, super strong, quick, fast. Never played football. And eventually the football coach dragged him onto the field, I guess. I don't know. But, got a look. Wasn't recruited heavily because he wasn't in the circles or whatever. But he did get a shot and eventually went on to play in the NFL for a few years at least.
Yeah.
Which is not saying nothing.
Now, what do you think helped you excel on the football field when you were playing basketball? Like, was it the quickness aspect of it? Because again, you could move for a big guy, man. Like, you were quick. So how do you think basketball helped your football career?
That's exactly it, honestly, is just the quickness. You think about the higher level, especially football, being big and strong. Really what it is, everyone is just so much faster and quicker. There's nobody that's slow on the field when when you're playing. So even the big guys can move. If you're just a big heavy kid, you're not going to see much playing time, put it that way. You have to be fast enough to keep up with everybody else.
Now, is the physicality an adjustment, do you feel like, for a lot of kids who maybe come into football late?
Yeah. But you can learn that, I think, a little bit better. It takes a little longer to develop the reaction time, really, more than anything. Like when you're playing basketball, you got to be able to react to people juking and moving and things like that, where, in college, when the ball snaps, everything's moving at 100 miles an hour. It's just a blur when you first start. So if you're not used to that, keeping up with people, I think it's more of a struggle for sure.
Gotcha.
So I remember when we were in high school and we were in that screen printing class. I don't know if you remember this.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that class.
Your stuff was always like so creative, man. And like I would be drawing stick figures and stuff. It was so sad. But what I remember, man, because I think that might have been first or second period, very early in the day, and you would come in with these recruiting letters, and it would be like these well-known colleges that were recruiting you. And you always stayed incredibly humble, which is awesome. But I want to now focus on your career at the University of Maryland, because that's where you played football, which is in the Big Ten Conference. Happens to be one of the best conferences in college football and basketball. It's a powerhouse. So what was the toughest transition from playing in high school to D1 football? Now, I know you just talked about the speed aspect of it, but is there anything that maybe really surprised you that you weren't considering?
One of the biggest things, and it's not really the gameplay per se, but just the jump from high school sports being something that you do for fun, mostly, it's pretty serious, but it's not end all be all, to college sports. It's your whole life at that point.
Wow.
You're essentially a professional football player that's also taking classes. And, it's really all consuming. We had one coach, I won't put him on blast, but we got these shirts that said student athlete on it. Walk into the locker room, he's like, "You can forget about that student athlete shit. You guys are athlete students." It's like, whoa.
Yeah.
That was freshman year, so I was like, all right.
Yeah.
Wow.
But as far as the football side of things, just like I said, the speed of the game is just so much faster. No one is bad. No one's a bum. If you're on the field and getting reps, you were the best player on your team in high school. You're the captain, so it's coming from that being the top dog, so to speak, to being the bottom rung when you get there as a freshman.
Wow, that's tough. So what was there an adjustment for you? Because I'm assuming in practice, as soon as you step foot on that field, like you have to show up every single practice, every single game. You can't slip up or someone's going to take your spot. Was that tough for you to continue to kind of play to that high level?
Yeah, that kind of hits the nail on the head. There's no coasting when everybody's good. If there's someone else coming each year, there's another class of freshmen that want to get playing time that are good and big and strong too. So there's really no days off. There's no years off. I think I did better than a lot of kids because I already saw myself as a little bit of an underdog, coming from a smaller school. It's not like Enfield was a powerhouse football school for decades, so I kind of had that chip on my shoulder already coming in, and it served me well, honestly.
Yeah,
that's good.
So college has kind of evolved quite a bit, especially the last few years. There's a lot of different variables that play into college sports overall now. So from when you played to where it is now, obviously NIL is a big thing, and the transfer portal, all these different things are kind of playing a part now in college sports. What do you feel is the biggest difference from when you played until now?
Yeah, I think that side of it is definitely ramped up. It's becoming, it always was a big business, but it's becoming even more of a big business, which is concerning to me. They are still college students trying to graduate, trying to get an education. The common joke is NFL means not for long. There's everyone I know eventually has to work. Even the guys that had great NFL careers that are household names, eventually you're going to get sick of going to the beach if you retire after football. So you're going to have to do something, and chances are you're going to want a degree to do that. When it becomes such a big business, that is concerning. Other than that, a lot of the conferences now are just really becoming minor league NFL conferences. I see over the next few years even more colleges kind of shutting down football programs and it kind of consolidating to the Big Ten, to the SEC, a few major conferences, and that's probably it. So definitely less opportunities, but at the same time, opportunities to make some money for the best players, which is a good thing. We had no money in college. Like you couldn't get a job, and you were essentially working at football all year long. So it's not like we weren't balling hard, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, do you feel like, in your opinion, because you played college football, do you feel that the NIL is good for college football, or is there kind of like its pros and cons? Because you see some guys on college football where it seems like they may be bigger than the program itself. But do you feel like that team camaraderie may be lost because of the NIL, and kids are now thinking about themselves and the money they make rather than the actual performance and the team aspect of it?
Yeah, I definitely think so. There are some positives. I don't hate on anybody for trying to make some money while they can, because football is a very dangerous sport, and you never know when your last game is going to be. So, I don't blame them for taking it. But like the transfer portal and things like that, there's less loyalty to a college. If things aren't going your way, you can kind of leave a lot easier. And maybe that's good for some folks. For some folks, it could be a negative too, though. I think for the programs in general, there's a level of self-development that you got to go through before you're actually a key player, a senior leader, things like that, where I think that might get missed. Kind of like basketball is right now. Like, a lot of the best players are not staying off 4 years. I don't think that'll happen as much in football, but it's a little less. It's a little more business than sports.
Yeah, we just listened to this podcast Tom Brady was actually on.
Yeah, that's a great one.
And he talked about essentially what you're saying, and what he said was, I think it was him going into his senior year at Michigan. He had an opportunity to go start at UCLA, and they said, like, come here, you'll start, no questions asked. And he was still fighting for playing time at that point, going into senior year in Michigan. And he made the decision to stay and stick it out in Michigan after talking to the coach. And the coach was like, you need to stop worrying about what everyone else is doing and worry about what you're doing and get your craft right. And that's kind of where that switch happened in him. And he developed the mindset he has. In order to be the best, you got to focus on yourself and not everybody else. And I think that attributes to a lot of what you're saying, BG, with the NIL. It could be where the appearance, at least, is that guys are focused on everything else outside rather than what they're doing and the work they're putting in. And you even saw it in a interview that he did, actually, ironically enough, with Shedeur Sanders. And Deion's like, hey, Tom, do you think it's normal for this kid to have whatever it was, like a Bentley or something like that? and Tom's like, he needs to get his ass out of the car and get in the film room, you know? So it's like that kind of stuff, you know, it's getting more and more lost, I feel, as the transfer portal and the NIL is kind of hitting. Like you, I don't begrudge anybody for getting their money. Do your thing.
Yeah.
Like you guys, I'm sure, earn it, you know, a year-round basis like that. But I can certainly see where you both are coming from in that sense, because it definitely gives that impression. I'm all for it because I like the movement. It's exciting. It got me interested in college football. But I can certainly see that from that vantage point as well.
Yeah, I agree.
As an offensive lineman too, I kind of, you know, the O linemen aren't getting paid like that, so
exactly. And you guys have
salty about
this
that.
isn't no smoke, blowing no smoke, but like that's one of the hardest jobs, if not the hardest job on the field. The game is always paid by line play.
Yeah.
So it's like however the lines play, the team plays.
Yeah.
But those aren't the jerseys that sell, you know.
Exactly.
So
unless you're Jason Kelsey, you're not selling that jersey.
Right. I was hoping for more of a little more equitable across the team, you know, where players could still make some money, so they're not struggling as much. Because, you know, I had a solid family growing up. They took care of me, but that's definitely not the case for everybody playing college football. So, you know, there's definitely a need for something, but I'm not sure that's the best answer that they could have came up with.
Yeah. So we talked a lot about the struggles in college football. What were some of the most rewarding parts for you playing at?
Yeah, so I think there's really nothing like playing in front of tens of thousands of people. You know, it's really coming out of the tunnel, fans are screaming, fireworks going off. You don't get that in a high school game. You know, it's pretty intense, and it's definitely something that I'll always remember. So that aspect of it, just the game days was huge. Teammates, you know, you build some lifelong friends. I think when you're playing high school sports, you're with your boys you grew up with, you know, you're playing with the kids that were in your neighborhood and things like that. College sports it's people from all over the place, a lot of which you would never be friends with normally. And you're working towards this thing together. And there's something about working hard towards a goal together that brings people together in general. And the differences kind of fall away. You know, you start seeing each other as individuals more. To be honest, I think it's something our whole country could use a little bit of. Yeah. Maybe they need some 2 days in the August heat to get them on the same page.
Lose half the country, man. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, like I think that was one of the more rewarding things is building those relationships, working towards a common goal together and working hard towards that goal. And I still have a ton of friends that I get up with, and that's the stuff that stays with you for sure.
Yeah, I always hear that the camaraderie is the biggest thing that the guys miss when they have to retire.
Yeah.
Yep.
And Jack, do you have like one of the fondest memories that you have, either a play you made in a game or a game specifically, maybe where you're down and it just like was an incredible moment to be a part of either that game or that experience?
Yeah, there's a bunch for sure. You know, last game as a senior, we played in the Humanitarian Bowl, which is out in Boise and on the blue turf, and that was against Colin Kaepernick when he was playing for Nevada. Nice. So we you know, I had a great game. We had a great running game that game, and you know, that was huge. It was a big win. That was a good cap to the season for sure.
Yeah.
And then we definitely played against some really. I got the opportunity to play against some NFL stars, you know, which is pretty cool. Matt Ryan, Russell Wilson when he was on Rutgers, then like Chris Long, Howie Long's kid when he was on Virginia. That was a tough game, but you know, it was fun.
Wow. That's awesome, man. And you did play against Marcus Vick as well on Virginia Tech.
Yep.
Yep.
Tackled Marcus Vick one time.
That's right. That's right.
Can't
We
take
were
that away
watching
from me.
game. We were watching that game, which is awesome. So
But yeah.
you had a tremendous senior year. You won the humanitarian award. You had an NFL Pro Day. Can you talk about that experience and what it was like? And I know that also is where it led to a knee injury. Can you just walk us through that experience for you?
Yeah, so I actually got hurt before the official Pro Day. But we were, and it's tough because as an offensive lineman, you're never really running a 40-yard dash. If you're running a 40-yard dash in the game, like either it's a pick six or you're just running to celebrate with your teammate in the end zone. That's the only two situations.
Tell that to my left tackle Andrew Thomas, who's been missing 6 games now, like for running after a pick six. Like it just
exactly. So yeah, we were doing sprints, and it was on some turf that was not the best turf in the world, which also is something that happens a lot these days. And I ended up blowing out my knee. I probably heard it prior to that. So I think my MCL was already torn, and I had some meniscus damage, and then just the ACL and everything else just went.
Ooh,
so that really was tough. And it was about a month before the Pro Day where, NFL scouts are coming to our school, working out for all the different teams, and doing drills, both football drills and then 40-yard dash, agility drill, things like that. And I still tried to do it. I still iced it down, did a bunch of treatment for a month, even though I knew it was torn up. And I actually did the Pro Day, but it didn't go that well. But
man.
Now, was that disclosed like after the fact, like after the Pro Day, when you're kind of like with the scouts and all that, like, yeah, my knee is just absolutely jacked up?
Yeah, I still had some conversation with some teams, which was cool, just to go visit their training centers and got that taste of it a little bit. But when you're in that situation, there's enough guys where you don't really have to take a chance on someone that's going to have to get surgery. So it became obvious that I was going to need to get surgery and be out for a while. And that was kind of the nail in the coffin a little bit. Every year there's another group, just like when you're coming into college as a freshman, there's another group of seniors coming out of college trying to make it to the NFL. So it gets harder and harder especially just the timing of it. So that was a tough time, honestly. It was a tough thing to deal with mentally, but everything happens for a reason. I think I value my brain and definitely put it through the ringer enough that I don't want to I'm not going to start a new boxing career anytime soon or anything like that. So from that aspect of it, maybe it was a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Jack, you touched on something there where, and now I played Division III college soccer, but what I found is when I stopped playing college soccer, I struggled with, I felt my identity was tied into that sport. It was tied into soccer. And there was an awkward transition for me after college where it was almost like, what do I do now? Because for so long, I dedicated my life to playing soccer all year round, right? And you're not surrounded by your brothers anymore, and it's just awkward, And so I was struggling to understand what is the value I bring now. When you went through that experience with your knee, what was that like? Was it hard? Because you touched on it briefly, but was it hard because your identity was tied into football for so much and for so long?
Yeah, to be honest, I think I have enough hobbies and other things going on where I was a little better off than some, but you definitely saw that happen with a lot of teammates as well, where after football, you're kind of lost for a little bit and kind of have to find their way. There's not as much resources about what you're going to do after you're done playing as you'd hope. And like you said, you have that camaraderie with dozens of guys on your team. You know, you're with a group of guys you can rely on and talk to that know what you're going through, that you can relate with, to kind of on your own. You know, I mean, definitely get up with the boys sometimes, but not every day. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So that can be tough. I think it's where a lot of mental work, a lot of you know, mindfulness type stuff can be very beneficial.
Mm-hmm.
Again, you can't, just like when you're a young kid dealing with losses, you can't tie your identity to a role that you're playing at the time. And you know, it was a tough thing to go through just because it was so sudden and I was so close to an ultimate goal of playing in the NFL. But to be honest, I got over it.
Yeah.
You know, it was I did play enough football in my life for one lifetime, for sure.
True.
Yeah, absolutely.
True.
So how, looking back at that now and how you handled that, do you feel like there's ways now, if you could tell yourself back then, maybe how to better handle it?
Yeah, just not trying to come up with a solution immediately. You know, I think we want to, at least I do, want to, if there's a problem, I want to fix it right now. You know, like I want to
every
get it
male
done.
in this world.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's definitely a men's type thing. But just taking it a day at a time and not trying to be a hero right away.
Yeah, for sure.
Would have been easier.
Yeah.
Probably shouldn't have done the pro day, to be honest. Like,
Right.
Should have got surgery immediately, but you know, I was definitely a little more of a meathead back then, so can't blame myself for that. But
right.
It definitely not blaming yourself for what happens and just trying to take it a day at a time and, you know, not trying to solve every problem immediately.
Right.
You know, football players, in my opinion, have this superhuman quality, or are seen as superhuman, right? And you play through injuries, you deal with things on and off the field. Do you feel like players have a tough time talking about their emotions due to that like superhuman persona? I mean, and just real quick with Tom Brady in the interview that you talked about before, he was very transparent about the last year he played football was very tough on him. And it was his personal life was starting to affect his performance on the field. And so often we don't see or understand that the football players are humans themselves, and they do have good days, they do have bad days. Did you find when you were playing that it was tough for some of the guys, even maybe yourself, that really to kind of share your feelings, emotions, or whatever, because you had to put up this masculine image?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that's a men in general problem that people have to go through. I think you know, the culture nowadays tells you that they want you to be in tune with your emotions and more expressive and things like that. But I don't think men are really rewarded for showing their emotions, like in between us, even like unless you're in a really good space. It's like, you know, stop being a little bitch.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
It is what it is. And then on the women's side too, I don't think there's the story that they want men that are very expressive and emotional and whatnot, but I'm not sure that's honestly the case when it comes down to it.
Yep.
So I think that's tough, and it's even heightened when you are a football player or any athlete or especially the more physical sports. it helps while you're playing because you do have all your teammates and they know what they're going through, a lot of the same stuff. But there is a ton of pressure. When you make a mistake in college football, it's on camera, whether it's in practice or the game, and you're going to watch that with your teammates in a meeting, and your coach is going to point that out and tell you how you messed up. And like, it's a lot of pressure each day, day in and day out. So that definitely, it took out a lot of good players for sure that probably would have had better careers if they had a little more coping mechanisms. I think we had a good group of guys that, we had a Christian fellowship group that met together, and it turned more into a venting session than anything. And it was just kind of, getting together to gripe. But things like that, I think UMD did a better job than a lot of schools probably do. But I think the biggest change is when you get out of football, not having some of that support system can be very tough. When like we talked about, you're losing a little bit of your identity, but are still expected to be the big, strong, tough guy. It's like you can get lost. And there's some things too that are not with an aggressive sport like football. Our D-line coach used to have a saying. He's like, when you get double teamed on a block or something, and he'd be like, solve your problems with aggression. And it's like, that works on the football field, but you can't do that in real life, right? Like, you're on a business debate, you can't go tackle them. So there's I think turning that off and kind of, getting acclimated to the real world can be tough for a lot of folks. It's almost like veterans coming back from war, not to say they're similar in any way, but it's a little bit on the mentality side. Like, you have to separate yourself from that.
There's definitely a transition period. And so you mentioned what I want to talk about next is you mentioned outlet. And what I admire about you, Jack, is you've always been extremely gifted, whether it be with your art, drawing, painting, but also a gifted guitarist, and you got a hell of a pair of lungs on you as well. Did you find that, where did this ability come from? Like the music and the creativity, and did you feel like that helped you maybe cope with things off the football field, like including maybe when you got your bell rung, like you had those outlets to keep you sharp?
Yeah, I mean, can't really say where it came from. I guess God, man. I've been drawing and painting and, interested in music since I can remember. That's always been kind of the two sides, has been sports and then art and music for me. But yeah, it's always been an outlet. It would definitely helped, after school, a few years after school, me and one of my teammates actually started a band together with his brother and some other of our boys. And that was awesome. That was as close to a team atmosphere as I'd been on, and as cool as it was to play in football in front of thousands of fans. Playing a show in front of a couple thousand is pretty damn cool too. Like,
I bet
that's pretty awesome. And then on the art side, that's honestly one of the most important things I do for myself. I take it seriously. It means a lot that some of my friends and relatives have my paintings up in their house. That's more than any money I could get for it. That matters a lot more to me than that. It's almost like, that for a while I was doing festivals and things like that, selling paintings and whatnot. And it got to a point where it's like, all right, I can paint a dozen Maryland flags and some crabs and, things like that, and definitely sell them. Or I can do what I want to and make this a true outlet and keep it for myself a little bit and, loved ones and whatnot. So it's almost like I don't even want to contaminate it with any type of financial needs. It's kind of that important to me. And I do think you need that for anybody. I think you got to find something that's an outlet.
And what's funny, Jack, is I could tell that your art does mean a lot to you because you kind of like perked up a little bit. Where do your ideas come from? Like, will you just kind of explore some ideas, or will something kind of trigger like, hey, this would be something really cool if I really started to draw this and paint it?
Yeah, again, I mean, some of it's just the muse, man. I don't know. Some things just pop in your head where there's been a lot of paintings for friends and family and things where I just get an image of it before I paint it. And like I'm at that point, it's almost just like the process of getting it down. The hard part is really the ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And then a lot of times, I have a ton of paintings that I end up painting over, just putting some house paint over the top of it when I'm done, because like it's just me messing around, seeing what happens. And sometimes the mistakes turn out to be the coolest stuff too.
Cool.
So it's definitely a meditative process for me. It's it definitely clears the mind. And there's sometimes, people talk about getting into the zone when you're doing things, and for me that's music and art. A couple hours will pass by and it's like, oh shit, it's 1:30 at night, I gotta go to bed.
That's awesome, man.
That is cool.
That's awesome.
So this is my first time meeting you, Jack. So I didn't know you were a musician or artist as well. What would you compare your music to? If you had to compare it to somebody or a style of music, what would you compare it to?
So our band was more like a reggae rock type deal. My buddy, he's like a slightly bigger version of Action Bronson, if you know who that is. Like, he looks
Slightly
exactly
bigger?
like
I was gonna say taller.
Yeah, he's a big dude.
Action's kind of a stout dude, so
I don't know, man. I don't know. He's a big dude. But so like he was rapping, and me and his brother always played guitar together for a while. So I was more like a lead guitarist and singing and stuff too. But yeah, I'm definitely heavily influenced by the blues, as is everybody really when it comes down to it. But yeah, even jam bands and things like that. Love that type of music. That a lot of times if I am painting, I'll be listening to something like that that's not as lyrically intense, but that's longer tracks that keep you going.
Yeah. One of our friends actually told us one time when we were talking about like creative moments like that, kind of like how you're explaining. He said he puts on jazz a lot.
Yeah,
and jazz is a great style of music to listen to, or genre of music to listen to when you're trying to get mentally focused and doing something proactive like that. So it's interesting to say that.
Yeah, no, for sure.
So Jack, I know that you have mentioned talking about self-optimization, personal growth. You incorporated a lot of those strategies in your own personal life. How have you incorporated like personal growth as, a husband and a father? And the reason why I ask you that is I feel for me personally, I really improved as a husband and a father when I started to focus on improving myself, especially my patience with my boys. And I know you got 3 kids of your own as well. And like that was huge. So can you kind of just talk through maybe some strategies that you use for your family and just to be a better husband as well?
Yeah, I think there's all different types of meditation. When it comes down to it, being mindful is the most important thing, probably. Just mindfulness practices. And there you can do a lot of different stuff, but I got really interested in that honestly after I got hurt, and right after college, read a lot of books, listened to a lot of podcasts, such as the Model Mindset. No, you guys are
great plug.
What a plug!
What a plug! Love that.
No, but the one cool thing is there are some really cool resources out there that you can You can learn other people's strategies and try things out for yourself. That mindfulness is huge, though. If you Brian, as a father, if you're picking up a crying baby and you're agitated, they know. Like, kids are very receptive without you having to say anything, without you having to do anything. Your body language, your just overall how your baseline is going to affect them too. So really keeping yourself in check a little bit, having strategies to calm down, things like that definitely help. Goes back to the sports too. Doing hard things. I like the cold shower type stuff. I like the working out really hard.
Love it.
And doing those hard things daily really makes everything else easier in life. It's the whole Mark Twain thing: get up and eat a live frog. Check off a few hard boxes early in the day, and it definitely makes the rest of the day easier. As a father, when my son was born, my daughter was 3, and right after he was born, he got a rare virus, probably from the hospital, and ended up having to go back to the hospital in intensive care for a week. So you got a 3-year-old at home, wife's having to stay at the hospital with the baby, like stressed out as can be. What are you going to do? You're just going to freak out and be angry and pissed off when you get home to your daughter, or you got to have some coping mechanisms. And definitely football helped with that too. Walking dead of winter to winter workouts at 5:30 in the morning and doing the hard things then definitely helped out as well. But keeping up with that and doing hard things daily and keeping a mindful attitude, I think it's the way to go.
I love that, man. That's
I know.
awesome.
That's our language right there, man. Like, that is our language. I think you have to do tough shit. I mean, we're both trained for a half marathon. This is gonna be John's first, my second. But I think there's something that checking off those boxes early in the morning where you exercise, it creates the foundation for the day to come. You're focused, you're motivated, you're ready to grind, and I think that says something too, because I mean, this morning I talked about how we went to the career fair and I didn't go to the gym. Normally I go to the gym right after I drop my boys off at daycare. And so after we spoke at the career fair, which went great, by the way,
Great.
I came back to my full-time job around like 10 o'clock and I was exhausted. And I was like, wow, so this is what it's like when I don't work out in the morning. I'm exhausted. So you bet your ass I went on like my lunchtime and worked out to get that kind of that pep, get those endorphins going. But people are missing out when they're not exercising and taking care of their health, because that's also where you're able to take care of your mental health as well.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. As much as I enjoy the physical side of it, and I've always been a gym rat. That was a big part of why I had a successful career in college. I wasn't the strongest or fastest compared to those guys, but I did work as hard, if not harder, than everybody else in the gym. And but yeah, for me, it's not even the physical aspect, it's the mental. Like, you have a much sharper mind, you're clearer, you have more energy. If I don't work out, like, I just feel like shit the rest of the day, like you said. Or at the end of the day, I'm like, wow, you are one piece of
lazy sack of shit.
You didn't work out today. So like, I'm doing something every day, whether it's 20 minutes of kettlebells or going for a run, something. I gotta do something to clear my head and get set.
Yeah, but we tell everybody is fitness is medicine for your mind, because it really balances out everything in your life. And people who say they're too tired to work out, it's like, no, you're tired because you don't work out. And there's a difference, both mentally and physically. You're tired because you don't work out. You absolutely are speaking our language, man, for sure.
Yeah. At my job, we put in really nice gym, really top of the line stuff, beautiful gym. And the only people that use it are me and some fellow management and a couple of the very top performers in the company. And that is it. Like, it's all like the upper management of the company pretty much that uses
Right.
the gym.
Well, that
And it's
speaks
like
volumes.
it does, right? Like other folks don't put that together though. It's like, well, why are you working out at lunchtime? You know, it's like,
Yeah.
well, look
at the
around.
results. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Jack, man, this has been a lot of fun, man. And honestly, it's been great to catch up with you. It's been good to hear about your journey, both in high school, how sports impacted your life, how your college career went, and now, of course, how you're a successful husband, father, and, of course, in your career as well. So, Jack, we thank you for coming on the Model Mindset, my friend.
Thanks, Jack.
Yeah, appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me.
Of course.
Nice. That was awesome, man. Hey. Oh, sorry. So we have shirts, Jack.